Digital acceleration is here. Health systems are walking the path, but are they in the right direction? Welcome to Patient Journey Pioneers, roadmaps from the top digital leaders in healthcare, who share insights and strategies that are pushing the patient journey to new heights. This podcast is brought to you by Hyro, and I'm your host, Liat Kozuch. Okay, well, here we are. I'm your host, Liat, and today we're back with two very distinguished guests in health IT, Cris Ross, Chief Information Officer at Mayo Clinic. Hey, Cris.
Hey, how are you, Liat?
Great. And we're here with Ed Marx, CEO of Divergent and former CIO of Cleveland Clinic and many more. A very close friend of Hyro. Also was my very first guest on this podcast, Ed. I don't know if you remember this. It's probably our almost 30th episode. For the audience who hasn't heard about it yet, Cris, give us a brief overview about the book. And then Ed, if you can tell us what inspired you two to write about it.
Yeah, thanks, Liat. Just very briefly, we also do have a companion white paper that we issued because we did want to speak to our colleagues. There you go. And it's called How to Improve the Patient Experience, and you can order it at the same place where you can order Diagnosed. So Diagnosed is a book that was inspired by Ed. He suggested that we do this. Both of us had difficult healthcare journeys through some serious illness, and we were treated by two great facilities, Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. But in that experience, even though we thought we knew about healthcare, we found out all the things that surprised us, some things that inspired us, and some things that disappointed us. And we wanted to share with others how some of the experiences that we had, supplemented by tons and tons of research with others, so it wasn't just about us, to try to help inspire and guide people who are going through difficult healthcare journeys. And we have different components about how we talk about that.
As Cris mentioned, the other thing that came about is, as we thought about writing this from the angle of CIOs and talking to our peers, we had to give credit to our publisher at Mayo Clinic Press. And I don't remember exactly if it was an editor came up with this idea of, wow, this is powerful. We should be sharing this with the public. We should be sharing this outside of healthcare. And indeed, the focus of the book changed, and we actually rewrote parts of it at the time to really address helping the public. And so the book is like a hand you can hold in your healthcare journey, because not everyone has the sort of access that we have. Not everyone has the insider's knowledge. And so this will help ensure patients can have a great experience no matter where they receive care.
Let's discuss, Cris, you spoke about this a lot in previous interviews, how we make these journeys, which are, as they are, terrifying, life-changing, vulnerable, how do we make them a more empathetic one? And I knew I want to start with, what was an aha moment that you had experienced, if you don't mind sharing, that led you to believe we're just not there yet, something needs to be fixed?
Well, I think part of it was discovering, after I got diagnosed, I was looking for, where's the on-ramp? What's the playbook? How do I do this? And I kind of expected that there would be a little bit more of a, you should do this, then this, then this. And it surfaces one of the real paradoxes that we run into, which is, on the one hand, we all would like to have a playbook, and I did. On the other hand, the point that Ed and I try to make really strongly is, no matter your personality, no matter what your approach is, no matter what your feelings are about your diagnosis, you got to own your own journey. It's one of those paradoxical experiences in life that my very looking for a playbook was what informed me that I needed to build my own. So I think that initial kind of within the first week of diagnosis, emotional reckoning was a big deal to me. And I know, talking to some other colleagues, maybe I was lucky and it came to me like it took me a whole week. Some other people would get it in a minute. But I know that some other people don't get it for months. And they're kind of waiting for some savior moment to get them through it, when in fact the answers really oftentimes are within ourselves.
Which is why you also pointed out that patients and their caregivers, although they can be overburdened, they have an incredible way of helping the health system improve with their wisdom, right? So
For sure.
healthcare could leverage this wisdom.
for me, it was a combination of personal experiences as well as experiences with my family, and then just hearing friends. And so I would go through my experience. I was going with Cris through one of his experiences, and we were like, my gosh, if this is so tough and stressful for us, imagine what it's like for people who don't have someone like a friend who works in healthcare, a spouse who works in healthcare, a son or daughter. And that's really the aha moment for me, was like, we have to do something, and it's not happening organically fast enough within healthcare, although everyone's trying really hard. So we need to really advocate for the patient, for the person that does not have someone like the three of us in their lives to help them navigate.
Cris, what did you learn from the wisdom of the people going through this? What are maybe 2 takeaways that you would like to, scream in a megaphone? What should healthcare learn from these patients?
Well, one
You're
is,
like, do we have 9 hours?
yeah, right, exactly. Boy, so top of the list, if we're thinking about what health systems could do better, one is we know that patients who are best able to access sources of resilience do better. The evidence is not overwhelming that it leads to a better clinical outcome, like it's going to help them with their managing their heart disease or get through cancer better. But we do know that they'll have a better experience. So we really should help people find their own wells of resilience. That would be one. Number two, engaging caregivers is a big deal, and a lot of systems are excellent at it, but we have a lot more room to go. And maybe the last one that I would really get to is we've got to get out of the era of process optimization and process fix. The things that we're doing to do safe medication or safe surgery, not stop any of those things. But what's happening is that each individual area is optimizing for kind of their own purposes, which can make it extremely difficult for a patient to move through things clearly. I would run into things where I would be like, well, why can't I have X? And the answer is, well, we don't do it that way. Well, what do you mean? Why can't you do it that way, right? And so the ability of health systems to be flexible to meet reasonable customer expectations is really limited, because, yeah, we have to worry about safety. And so we have a whole bunch of rules about what we can and can't do. But I'm of the opinion that we can get better and better at how we manage things behind the scenes, so that those rules about what we do and don't do don't have to be so punishing to our patients.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place healthcare as far as meeting those expectations today?
Well, some places get a 6 or a 7. The problem is the scale goes to 100. So I would say when we self-rank ourselves, we probably do okay. And there's some places that are good. When I think about caring for family members and my own care, varies radically from one health system to another, in my experience, and from one patient pathway to another.
And before I move on to get Ed's take on those aha moments and takeaways that health systems should learn from, Ed, prepare your answer for that. Try to get it to 2. Cris, what is Mayo Clinic doing these days? How are you kind of implementing your desires and dreams and wishes into reality as far as digital innovation?
Well, one is we're getting better about patient front doors, and that is a way to, on the surface, create a glossy surface which makes things nicer for patients, and that's cool. But what the long-term effect of it is going to be is to drive consumer expectations and patient expectations further into the health system. So it'll challenge us on things like scheduling appointments and what information do people want to receive back, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think our 2 things are, one, with what we have, without changing things at the core, how do we create a better experience? That's nice. But what's transformative is if those things can then drive more systematic change in response to patient need.
Ed, what are your top 2 takeaways that, you get to a room of CIOs, you say, this is what healthcare needs today after reading this book?
Well, I'll give you 2 really quickly, Uber themes, and then 2 very specific things. So the 2 Uber things is that experience is never the reason for a patient's positive or negative outcome, but can be the accelerator of either. So experience is very important. The second thing is the majority of things that we can do today and that Cris and I are talking about and have written about in the patient experience booklet white paper do not cost money. They are all about leadership. And so quick two ideas that the big ones for me, where you have to continuously develop a culture of empathy within your tech organization. A lot of health systems talk about empathy and all that kind of stuff and do some stuff, but it really needs to be pervasive and continuous. It's not like a one-time event. It's just a way of work. That's one thing. And an easy way of doing that is invite patients into your meetings, into your town halls, have patients speak about their experience. That's just one way. There's many ways. And you can get more information in that booklet. The second thing is include patients in everything that you can. Governance meetings, design meetings. Like, it's funny when people develop digital front doors or, different access points, that there's no patients involved. And so we encourage you to have patients involved wherever you can. So those are two Uber things, and then two more detailed aha moments and ideas.
Cris, back to you. What are some ethical considerations when deploying AI in the patient care setting?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And to be fair, we don't really explicitly address AI in our book. We probably could have, should have, but, it felt like it wasn't the moment. But what I would say is, I'm a big fan in our environment of a mix of kind of big AI and little AI, where big AI is looking at diagnostic issues and large quality control issues. Little AI are the little helper tasks that can help us with a bunch of stuff. And a lot of those little AI things are things like an automated greeting or a patient interface or a chat bot for patients to engage and ask questions. Even leading up to things like routine questions that go to clinicians. Can we answer them accurately and effectively using an AI tool, which a pretty good answer immediately for a lot of patients is better than an answer that takes weeks that's perfect. So I think there's a lot of ways we can use it. There's a number of ethical frameworks. We happen to be a big supporter of the Coalition for Healthcare AI, which drives out all of those characteristics in some detail. But I just think there's a bunch of places where for a patient, they're very tolerant of the thing not being perfect, right? Now, for their care, for diagnostic, for treatment, for dosing, no, we got to be super careful. But for things like, are you open on weekends? Where do I park when I come to the clinic? Or even to the doctor, may I get a refill of my prescription? AI tools can manage those perfectly well at a higher level of quality than maybe they're receiving today.
Ed, anything to add?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love listening to Cris. I'm always learning so much, and some of his insights are pretty cool. The only thing I would add, whether it's AI or some other tech that's going to come out in 2 to 3 years that none of us are, even knowledgeable about yet because it hasn't been developed, but probably will be, is that everything we do should be so personal. So we should take technology and make it so personal that it's like the human touch. And so I think as long as we keep that in mind, keep the empathy in mind, and we've seen some great models already of AI being able to do that, to be more empathetic than, sometimes. And there was some studies done, out of California with physician interactions with patients, and AI was doing it in a more empathetic manner than the actual clinician. So as long as we keep that in mind as kind of the North Star, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I love listening to you guys because you simplify it and yet you bring so much meaning into this bridge that's so meaningful between just the patient meeting the health system and how to bring it to their fingertips, but in the right way to escort them through this process. So it's awesome. Speaking of future, back to you, Cris. 1 or 2 trends you anticipate to see in the next 5 years that your book will hopefully inspire or pave the path for?
Well, I think one thing that we're seeing is that the way that healthcare is being paid for is increasingly being cognizant of these issues. I think, I don't know, we either ignored it or took it for granted, but the federal government leadership in putting in place this HCAP and other kinds of scores that measure patient satisfaction is a step in the right direction. Patient satisfaction is only really a proxy for whether the patient journey is a good one or not, but it's not bad. And so the fact that the people who are paying for healthcare, which is mostly insurers, employers, the government, are paying attention to it. I think that'll help move the needle in the right direction. I think the second thing is, we have to understand kind of the arc we've been on. If you go back to 2009, 15 years ago, it was rare that care was delivered with an electronic medical record system. And now it's common. It's unusual when you aren't being treated with support of those systems. Have we gotten it right? No. Are they still annoying to our clinicians from time to time? Yes. Are they getting better? Absolutely. But we're like every other industry. We become automated, and then we begin to create plugs between these automated systems, and that creates networks. And when that happens, industries get transformed. So I guess I'm really enthusiastic and bullish about this. It'll be a generation long, but we'll be at the end of that generation 10 years from now. So I think 10 years from now, we will be a fully automated, fully networked, interoperable healthcare system. We're already most of the way there. But the last mile stuff, I think, will really make a difference for everybody who's involved in it.
Amazing. Ed, you have a magic wand. What change would you like to see? One change in the next 5 years that your book can pave the path for?
I think just for us to pay more attention to other industries and what they're doing with personalization and consumerism and bringing more of that thinking and design into healthcare. I think we would learn so much, and many organizations are doing that. But I think if everyone did that and just try to, I love my most recent example is when I go to hotels now, I never stop at the front desk anymore. Everything
Exactly
on my phone. It's beautiful. I mean, sometimes you would wait a half hour, and then I won't mention the brand, but I can customize how they let me know things. And now, thanks to responding to their customers, you can now share that one of the limitations was, sharing your door key electronically with your spouse, as an example. So now they've enabled that as well. I mean, I just love it. So we need to take all that, what's happening in other industries that are super hyper consumer focused, and adopt that in healthcare. That'd be my magic wand. And it's easy. Again, it's free. These concepts are free. I mean, the implementation, you need a great partner like Cairo to make some of these things happen. But a lot of what we talked about is free. And certainly the design thinking and everything is all, the strategy is free.
Cris, you're tell us more.
I'm totally with it. But, my CIO head is immediately going to, we could find a way for people to signal I'm here when they're in their car in the parking lot and walk directly to an exam room.
Yeah.
And we're working on that. The challenge is going to be that really will require, like Ed says, it's free, but the challenging your colleague to try to do their work differently than they have from a long time, that isn't free. I mean, there's a lot of effort that comes with that. And our providers are heroes, and they already are overburdened, so we don't want to make it worse. We don't want to layer on top of them, a patient has walked in the room before you're ready, and now they're impatient because their expectation is you're going to be there right now, blah, blah, blah. We got to work through all those issues, but I think they're all solvable. I really do.
With that, reaching the end, fun segment. Not that this wasn't fun till now, because I'm soaking in. And you were right. When Cris speaks, you're just like Ed on the first episode.
Ed makes my heart go faster. He makes me want to run and jump and go.
Same. Trust me, I'm holding back on my compliments for Ed because So this podcast, we named it Patient Journey Pioneers. Ed, what does it mean to be a patient journey pioneer?
I think it means to be a servant and look for ways to, think about what it's like, going back to empathy, think about what it's like for that patient and serve others to improve the experience.
Amazing. Cris, what does it mean to you to be a patient journey pioneer in this role?
Well, my ancestors were pioneers. They came to the U.S. at the time when land was free, as long as you went far enough west. And they ended up in Nebraska, and they were dirt farmers, and they started from nothing, and they made something. And the way that you do that, if you're a pioneer, is you have to be inventive of what you got. What are your circumstances? How am I going to just work a little bit harder each day and work a little bit smarter? It's just about accretion. It's just about getting started. It's just about, we're not going to build a city to begin with. We're going to build a sod hut, and then we're going to go from there.
Love that. We reached our speed round, my friends, and I'm going to say one word, and you are going to respond with one word that it reminds you of, or something that comes to mind when I say this word. And Ed's going to laugh because I'm going to pick on you, Ed, and I know this is going to make you smile. Talk about this a lot, but you have to respond with one word. You ready?
Ready.
Governance.
Painful.
I did not expect that one.
I believe it's important. Painful.
I expected you to say a must, which is 2 words, but that's okay. I'll have it. Why painful? Explain.
It is a must, and you have to do it, but it's hard to do it well. But you must do it.
Okay, and I mean, in our previous episode together, you spoke a bit about governance, but could you just share with our audience, newcomers, why you think it's so important?
Yeah, you have to have the ability to take all these great ideas and to focus it back to your mission and vision of the organization. And if you don't have governance, everyone does their own thing. And that's a problem with many organizations today. They're doing 100 different things, and they're not doing any of them well because you can't do 100 things well. So governance is the process by which you get the right stakeholders around the table, including a patient, ideally. And you look at everything, you look at your resources, but you go back to the mission and vision of the organization. Why do we exist? And then you only do those things that enable the mission and vision to come to reality. That's governance.
Okay. Cris, you ready?
I'm ready.
The CIO's role today.
That's not one word, but orchestrator.
Ooh. Drop the mic. Explain.
I was at a conference recently and everybody was asking me, what's the one thing you're working on? And it was a place where there's a lot of startups and a lot of things like that. And I'm like, dude, that's not my job. My job is not to do the one thing. My job is not to focus on the one instrument in the orchestra. My job is to be the conductor and try to put all the pieces together. So my job is to care about everybody who is focused, laser focused on one thing, and to make it possible for them to advance.
Okay. That last line. God, I have a lot to ask you.
Make it
I guess
tough.
the biggest challenge today.
Finance.
I knew it had to do with that.
So it's hard.
Explain.
I think Cris mentioned it earlier in the podcast, just the way that we pay for healthcare today, how it's reimbursed, all the different games that are then now played as a result, make it very difficult for health systems, hospitals to survive. And today, many of them are at 0%. They were at negative percents last year in terms of profitability, and you can't sustain like that. You only take care of patients. Meanwhile, there's other parts of the healthcare ecosystem that are just, astronomical profits. I'm all about profitability, capitalism, all those things, free market, love it. But there has to be a better balance in play because it's not sustainable. Healthcare is local, and it's important that you have vibrant healthcare facilities taking care of the patients and their communities. And if that becomes upside down, it's not sustainable. And a lot of these hospitals are closing in areas where people really need healthcare.
Well, that's a sad truth, but yeah, we see it happening. So hopefully when we have you guys back, these things will be improved. Thank you guys so much. I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. So Cris, I want to know what your favorite music artist is to end us off with and get to know you a bit better.
My God, that's like asking my favorite children.
I know, right?
Oh boy. I'm gonna cheat and say two. One is I'm like a super opera geek, and I've been listening to a lot of Puccini recently. And second is one of my daughters got me turned on to smart hip hop, and I've been listening a lot to a guy named Prof recently.
God, Cris with his answers, it's like it's mind blowing. Even with this simple question, it's not a simple question. It's hard to choose a music. Okay, thanks for that, Cris. And Ed, I know you love music like I do, but what's your favorite music artist today?
The one that's on my mind right now is Diana Kroll. So little smooth vocal jazz on my mind right now.
Jazz and so I love it. Well, guys, thanks for being true patient journey pioneers. Really, thanks for discussing these crucial topics with us today. We will see you hopefully very soon, either at VIVE or HIMSS or wherever Hyro's traveling at the next healthcare conferences, and of course on our virtual summit. Love to have you guys speak.
Thanks so much for having us. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And people
can
know that I know the book, not
okay. Yes.
Who knows?
How do we get? Sorry, I just want another segment with that. How can we get your book? When is it being released? Where's the white paper?
So if they go to diagnosebook.org, so it's one word, diagnosebook.org, they'll find how to pre-order the book Diagnosed, and they can also download the white paper booklet called Patient Experience, which we've been speaking a lot about. All the author royalties go to Cure Cancer. So we have a fund being set up at the Mayo Clinic Foundation, and everything goes, author royalties go to Cure Cancer.
Can I get a side copy?
Of course.
Thank you so much, guys. I'll let you go about your busy day and see you guys soon.
Thanks so much. See you.
Thank you for listening to Patient Journey Pioneers, brought to you by Hyro. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. See you on our next episode.